For more on this, we are now joined by Cape Town's Safety and Security Head, Alderman JP Smith, and he joins us via our video link. JP, thank you so much for joining us here on the latest edition. Of course, we've seen Santaco taking that decision to suspend operations of taxis for 6 days. What is your immediate reaction as the City of Cape Town?
Well, as with all strike action, it is their prerogative and right to withhold services. What unfortunately is not their right, and which we saw immediately upon the announcement of the strike, is widespread disruption and violence. And that's not their right. Those are criminal actions which need to be met with a criminal justice response. So it's not acceptable to go and attack a school, to petrol bomb an ambulance, to attack other buses on which people depend. Then you're not about proving a point or disputing government. Then you are busy with economic sabotage and risking the lives of other people. So those are deeply deplorable acts. And the leadership who instigate others to take such actions should be ashamed. So that I can't accept. And I also, just from your earlier interview, the claims that there was any rough-handed behavior of taxi drivers by enforcement staff is categorically and patently false. There were acts of violence which involved the assault of a traffic officer on that morning, which on the station deck, which precipitated that whole incident. And right before that video starts rolling, 4 live rounds discharged by a person amongst that group of taxi drivers who the police thought had fled into or were hiding in that taxi. And the reason for the breaching of the taxi window is that the occupants refused to exit the taxi when given a lawful instruction by a police official, and that there was a fear that they were harboring an illegal firearm. So a lot of context that's missing from that little clip, but nowhere did taxi drivers get assaulted. What did happen the very next morning is that a taxi driver also assaulted another traffic officer, that officers have been shot at, a SABC member was shot earlier, and these are not the actions of people who are busy with a strike. These are the actions of people who are busy with criminality.
JP, it seems as if you and Santaco are not seeing eye to eye. Have you reached out as the City of Cape Town to the taxi industry, just to iron out some of these problems you are encountering?
So when you don't see eye to eye with somebody, you use legal means at your disposal to dispute the matter. You go to court, you change laws, you do a variety of other things. You bring in arbiters or mediators. What you do not do is go and gridlock roads purposely by driving slowly on freeways and blocking other people's ability to get home, to cause frustration. What you do not do is engage in violence and attack infrastructure and innocent people. No solution or settlement can be reached on the back of violence and threats and intimidation and negotiating with a gun against somebody's head. That will never result in a meaningful way forward. The city did not walk away, nor did province, from the discussions. We had a task team meeting scheduled on Monday. I've attended several of those task team meetings and spent hours in discussion and engagement with the industry. A large number of additional operating permits were facilitated by the city and province, a significant number of which have not even been applied for yet by the industry. So I'm afraid the protestations are not being made in good faith. There are other agendas fueling this. We did not walk away from the discussions and remained open. I had a conversation with Mandla Hermanus during an ENCA interview earlier. I said to him, shall I call NEC McKenzie and get us talking further to the matters that were discussed in the interview? He said, yes, you can call me on Monday. Monday is not good enough. The crisis that is being created by violent protesters is being created now and is affecting people, as your interviews indicated, affecting regular people who are just trying to get to and from work and doing other things. And it's unreasonable. There are other public transport operators who will step in, but are being prevented from doing so through violence and intimidation.
And Santaco is saying, of course, that it seems as if their taxis here are being impounded for minor offences. What do you have to say about that? They're saying that as much as they understand that you are there to instruct the law and to install those bylaws, but it seems as if here even the minorest of offences, it's something that the City of Cape Town is not willing to entertain.
No, ma'am, that's complete dishonesty. let's be clear, no vehicle has been impounded in terms of the bylaw, and the persistent narrative that some people in the industry and some opportunistic politicians who've jumped on the bandwagon in the last days are creating is misinformed and purposely so. It is extremely clear, and Mandla himself admitted it in the ENCA interview, that no vehicles are being impounded in terms of any bylaw. The vehicles are being impounded in terms of a national legislation, the National Land Transportation Act, which is the piece of legislation that governs the regulation of public transport vehicles, which permits for the impounding of vehicles. All impoundments have been done in terms of the National Act. So it is not, it's not honest to try and pin the issue on city legislation. And when you are receiving, and I'm assuming you yourself must drive or must be on the road sometime, there is no member of the public who goes about our roads daily and does not see the chaos and mayhem caused by public transport operators who flout the law, drive recklessly, drive into oncoming traffic, ignore traffic lights, drive on sidewalks. And I know because I get these complaints daily from members of the public from all communities across the city who ask us and expect us to impact on it. We issue fines. If the fines are not effective, we must try and find more effective routes. We cannot stand by and see 12,500 people a year in this country lose their lives on our roads and think that that is acceptable. Every person in government, including these opportunistic people who've tried to make politics out of this, should be dedicated and committed to reducing that road death toll figure. When you see an incident such as happened in Mitchell's Plain recently, all of us must be committed to turning that kind of situation around. And the longer the application of the law is consistent and fearless, the further we will get from the kind of incident we saw in Mitchell's Plain a couple of months ago.
And of course, this has left many commuters stranded. You know, what do you have to say as the City of Cape Town when it comes to those who rely on public transport like taxis in Cape Town are now simply left stranded?
Well, just like those communities, I am appalled by the behavior, the violent behavior of those public transport operators who are not interested in the commute of those members of the public, who don't care whether those people get home safely, but are willing to burn buses and attack commuters and disrupt traffic in order for them to make some point. That does not reflect the purported passion or interest in commuter safety and quality of life and dignified transport and opportunities for those commuters. Quite the contrary, it indicates self-interest. So I'm very much on the side of the commuters. We are doing everything we can to make sure that public transport options are accessible to them. We will be running staging areas, as we have during previous strikes, where people can safely access public transport, and we're transporting and escorting public transport vehicles into hotspots to permit people to access public transport. Our loyalty is first and foremost to the commuters, and that's also why we do this enforcement, because the commuter, no matter what they earn or where they live, should have the same access to quality transport and should not have to accept options where drivers are reckless or irresponsible.